Aung San Suu Kyi. Mesdames et Messieurs les ambassadeurs, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Mesdames et Messieurs les sénateurs et députés et représentants de l'Union européenne, Mesdames, Messieurs, chers membres de la communauté universitaire, chers étudiants, Aung San Suu Kyi, au nom de l'Université, je vous remercie chaleureusement pour l'honneur que vous faites à notre communauté par votre présence parmi nous aujourd'hui. Nous sommes à la fois touchés et honorés par votre geste. Aujourd'hui est un jour de joie extrême et de bonheur infini. Les valeurs que vous défendez, la liberté d'opinion et d'expression, la non-violence, la pensée critique, l'ouverture et l'action sont aussi les nôtres. Ces valeurs ont mobilisé la communauté universitaire pour soutenir votre action. Dans cette mobilisation, votre apport a été immense. Vous nous avez donné une leçon d'humanité de la plus belle des façons. Votre attitude, votre détermination, votre pensée et votre engagement total pour améliorer la situation de vos concitoyens nous a fait prendre conscience que nous aussi, même à des milliers de kilomètres de là, nous pouvions agir et contribuer à défendre nos valeurs communes. Votre apport à notre communauté, à nos étudiants en particulier, votre courage et votre ténacité ont été remarquables et exemplaires pour défendre la liberté et les droits de vos compatriotes, tout en restant attachés à vos valeurs, malgré le prix fort payé pendant de trop nombreuses années. Votre combat non violent pour la démocratie, votre profondeur éthique, qui cherche à concilier héritage spirituel, inscription dans l'histoire de votre pays et revendication de l'universalité des droits à la dignité, à l'égalité et à la liberté, votre prise de responsabilité politique, l'acceptation aussi de la complexité de la situation et votre capacité à nouer des compromis ont été autant de leçons pour nous tous, comme votre vie de femme d'action et de pensée, qui assume les risques d'une pensée confrontée au réel, vous qui avez toujours défendu une approche existentielle du politique et accepté de vous mettre en danger pour un idéal qui dépasse l'existence humaine. Aung San Suu Kyi, par votre exemple, au service d'un idéal qui dépasse les frontières de l'espace universitaire, vous avez extrait le meilleur de nous-mêmes. Vous nous avez donné la plus belle formation à distance qui soit. En 2005, 54 docteurs honoris causa de l'UCL ont soutenu l'action en votre faveur. Ils ont rappelé ceci, je cite, « L'université est synonyme de savoir. Nous, docteurs honoris causa de l'UCL, estimons qu'être docteur, c'est aussi agir en fonction de ce savoir. » Fin de citation. En février 1998, nous avions l'immense joie de vous décerner le titre de docteur honoris causa de notre université. Je vous propose, dès à présent, et à tous ici présents, de revivre ce moment en présence de Aung San Suu Kyi, qui, assigné à résidence, n'avait pas pu recevoir en personne ces insignes.
J'ai eu cette immense joie de la rencontrer en janvier. Il y a un murmure qui est monté de la cour devant cette maison. Et on a vu, mon épouse et moi, 50, 60, 100 personnes acclamer Aung San Suu Kyi qui apparaissait. Nous sommes restés médusés de joie. Nous sommes restés devant cette pensée énorme que quelqu'un venait à la rencontre de notre communauté universitaire chargé de 10 ans de respect des plus grands principes. Oui, Madame, nous vous admirons pour votre foi intense, pour votre modestie totale, pour l'harmonie de votre pensée et de votre action, pour votre tolérance et votre volonté permanente de dialogue, pour votre refus de toute violence, pour votre recherche permanente des valeurs birmanes et des valeurs universelles, pour votre amour de votre peuple et de toute l'humanité. Pour toutes ces raisons, oui, Madame Aung San Suu Kyi, si vous le voulez bien, mérite le docteur honoris causa.
Attendu que Madame Aung San Suu Kyi poursuit avec courage et ténacité l'œuvre de son père, artisan de l'indépendance de son pays par la promotion des qualités, des richesses et des vertus de ses populations. Attendu que Madame Aung San Suu Kyi est devenue, au bénéfice de son pays et de toute la communauté internationale, par son action non violente de chaque instant, par un appel permanent à un dialogue constructif et par une détermination sans faille, une véritable incarnation des droits de l'homme. Nous, en vertu des pouvoirs qui nous ont été conférés, nommons et proclamons Madame Aung San Suu Kyi, docteur honoris causa de l'Université catholique de Louvain.
C'est avec fierté et grand plaisir que je suis ici venu d'Oxford en Angleterre, accepter au nom de ma courageuse épouse ce grand honneur. C'est à cœur ouvert qu'elle reçoit ce geste de solidarité de la part de votre université. Suu est inspiré dans sa conviction que son pays ne pourra s'épanouir que lorsque son peuple sera délivré de la peur et que ses talents seront ainsi libérés.
Je vous cède la parole en vous disant encore, au nom de toute notre communauté universitaire, merci. Merci d'avoir pris le temps de vous être arrêté à l'UCL. Sachez que notre université continuera à vous apporter tout son soutien pour défendre les valeurs de liberté et de non-violence qui vous sont chères. Do Aung San Suu Kyi, you have the floor.
It is a great pleasure for me to be here today, to be able to thank the university for all that it has done for us over the past few decades. There was talk about our shared values, and this is very true. I think we can get help only from those who really share the values to which we are committed, because only those who share the same values will understand what our needs have been and what our needs still are. This is why I have chosen as the topic of my talk today, charity and compassion in politics. I am very proud of the fact that this is a Catholic university, because I'm a Buddhist. My country is largely Buddhist, but it shows that commitment to human values overcome all barriers of race and religion. That a Catholic Belgium university should be supporting our movement for democracy in Burma gives us great hope for the future of mankind. It means that we can all share the values that will help humanity to progress. When I talk about charity, I'm talking about charity in the sense of the original meaning of the word, which I understand was love, or as the Buddhists would put it, loving kindness. Loving kindness and compassion are fundamental to Buddhist ideas. They are fundamental to the needs of mankind. Over the past few decades, when we were struggling to overcome all the barriers in the way of reaching the road to democracy, we found that what held us together, what helped us to keep going in the face of great odds, was the charity and compassion shown to us by peoples from all over the world. Not just what we shared among each other, not just in our small group of struggling lovers of democracy in Burma, but of peoples all over the world. My opinion then, that different peoples of different races and different religions could share the same human values was strengthened last year when I started traveling abroad again. There I found in different parts of the world peoples whom I would never have dreamt were interested in what was happening in Burma, were not only interested but truly supportive. In many countries in Europe, I met peoples from Africa, from the Middle East, from the Asian countries, which I would have thought were rather indifferent to what we were trying to achieve in Burma. And these were people, strangers, who would come up to me in public places to tell me that they stood by us, that they were with us in our struggle. And that is because they felt for us a compassion and a loving kindness, because they understood that we were struggling for the right to live as decent human beings, that we were not asking for very much. We were just asking for the basic necessities of life. And yet these basic necessities of life are extremely hard to achieve. Freedom from want, freedom from fear. I think these two freedoms are fundamental to peace in our world. People who live in fear cannot be kind to one another. People who live in want cannot think about the needs of others because they have to think about fulfilling their own needs. And fear is a great generator of hatred. If we want to remove hatred and dissension, we have to remove fear. And to remove fear, there has to be a belief that we share the same values, that particularly we all believe in the effectiveness, the importance of charity and compassion. There are many people who will think that charity and compassion have no place in politics. But on the contrary, I think there's a great need for charity and compassion in politics, if we are to make politics the kind that we really need for our world today. Politics is about human society. It's based on the word for a town, a city, a piece of human society, a bit of human society. And what is needed for human beings is needed for politics. Politics is seen by many people as somewhat questionable, something that politics is dirty, shady, and I understand there's less and less respect for politicians all over the world. I think this has more to do with the misconception of politics than of politics itself. If we understand politics as responsibility rather than as rights or as a path to power, then I think we would be able to understand why there is a need for compassion and charity in politics, especially in a society like Burma, where people have been divided by great differences of opinion with regard to the political path that our country should follow. We have still not got to the point where we are all agreed on how our country is going to get to the goals that we are striving to achieve. There's a lot of talk about democratization, but we are just at the road to democratization. It is not enough to look at what was achieved in the last 2 years. We have to look at what we need to achieve, that our future might be secure and that our people may be able to live in the kind of society that will give them both the security and the freedom that they need. I have said repeatedly that for me, democracy means a healthy balance between security and freedom. You cannot emphasize one at the expense of the other. There are those who emphasize freedom and forget that people need security as well. And we have suffered greatly under those who have emphasized security to the total elimination of freedom. That is the kind of security that you may find in a prison, but that is not the kind of security our people want. We want security, we want freedom. We want security that is achieved through rule of law and through respect for the will of the people, through a recognition of the needs of our people. That is the true kind of security that will help democracy to flourish. As the world gets smaller and smaller, some of our problems get bigger and bigger because we are much closer to each other physically, in the sense that everywhere is reachable. There is a greater need for us to be able to live with the fact that differences need not divide us. Differences can help us to see the world in a richer way. To be able to create unity out of diversity should be one of the aims of our world, where there is much diversity and therefore a greater need for unity, because we are forced, whether we like it or not, to engage with one another. Globalization has its challenges. I'm not talking about the challenges of the economy. There are many people who are very much aware of the economic challenges of globalization. But I would like to concentrate more on the human challenges of globalization, how we can live together as human beings in a world where we cannot get away from one another. To live in peace and harmony with those with whom you're always in contact is a lot more difficult than to live in peace and harmony with those whom you see very, very seldom. It does not mean that because I'm here just for a brief period, we need not be able to live in harmony. But on the other hand, I'm sure it is more difficult for you who live together all the time to be able to live together in harmony than for you and me to be able to live together in harmony. But I think we have to get to the point where we can learn to overcome not our differences, but we can learn to overcome the perception that our differences are drawbacks rather than elements that will help us to live a more valuable, a richer life. And that has to be based on shared human values. In the end, it's common values that will bind us together. And I think we can all agree that human beings in general appreciate kindness. They appreciate love. They appreciate compassion. They appreciate understanding. And what you want for yourself, you should be able to give to others. And in politics, this is truly necessary if politics is to be honest. If politics is to be more than just a search for power, for position, then it has to be based on respect for your fellow human beings. A politician who does not respect the people for whom he is supposed to be working will not be able to contribute positively to the society which he is supposed to be serving. This is why I particularly want to thank Louvain, because when you were helping us through the past decades, there was nothing that you could have hoped to gain from it for yourselves. We were not in a position to help you in any way. We were not in a position to repay you for what you had done to us, done for us. But I believe that as a Buddhist, I believe in karma. And karma simply means action, means doing. Some people translate karma as fate, but the root meaning of the word is simply to do, to act. So karma, in many ways, this is very scientific. There is always an effect. If there's a cause, there's an effect. And there isn't an effect without a cause. So karma, the doing, the action, will lead to a particular effect. So whatever you do to help others, that will have its effect. Maybe not on your own life, but perhaps on the lives of others. And the cumulative effect of what you have done will reflect on what happens to the rest of the world, to the rest of humanity. So I do believe that what you have done to help our movement will help not just us, but your society as well, and societies all over the world which want to live in peace and security, in harmony and in freedom. That is what we are trying to do in my country. We have come some way since I was honored with the doctorate by Louvain University, but we have not come far enough. We have still a long way to go. And I hope you will keep this in mind. We appreciate very much what you have done for us in the past. And I hope and I believe that you will be with us as we travel further into the future. We have yet to establish a situation in Burma where we can say that we are safely on the way to a society where our people can feel that they are respected and that their needs are understood and that they have a government that is capable of fulfilling those needs. As we go along that road, we will continue to be in need of friends, but at the same time, I hope and I believe that we will be able to make our own contribution to the rest of the world, to a better world for everybody to live in. We're joined together not by a similarity in race or in religion or in nationality, but by a similarity in belief. I would go back to shared values. It's our shared values which have brought us all together here. If we could extend the boundaries of sharing, if we could extend the boundary of these shared values, we would be extending the boundaries of harmony and peace in our world. We all desire peace, but too often, in too many places in our world today, there is no peace. In my own country, since we became independent, there has never been a time when we could say that the whole country was totally at peace. We are a country of many ethnic nationalities, and we have yet to achieve that goal, that ideal, when all our ethnic nationalities are able to say, we are at peace with one another. We have learned to respect our differences, the differences between ourselves, and to make it a positive force rather than a negative one. We are still trying to achieve that situation, and I hope you and the rest of the world will give us your understanding as we work towards this. It is very easy to point out the weaknesses in a situation, but it is not so easy to find the answers that will help us to overcome these weaknesses. We have problems, we have challenges. We are not afraid to face them, but we do need understanding and support as we try to overcome our difficulties and to meet our challenges in the right way. Since Burma became independent, we have been talking about the great potential of our people, but this potential has never been realized, has not yet been realized to date. And this is what we want to try to do for our people, to create a situation in which they will be allowed, in which they will be enabled to achieve their full potential, to realize their full potential. I hope that you will give us your understanding and your practical support as we try to achieve this goal. And that this support will be based on an understanding of the need for compassion and charity in our society as we try to bring about national reconciliation. National reconciliation is a very broad concept. We have need for political reconciliation, for ethnic reconciliation, for religious reconciliation, for reconciliation that will spread throughout our society and bring us all together as a democratic union. That was the goal of the fathers of our independence movement, a genuine democratic union of Burma where all our peoples could live in peace. This goal has yet to be realized, and we hope that you will be with us as we progress towards that goal. I did not ask whether there was any program for a question and answer session. I was not told very clearly how it was. But I do want to leave enough time for that. So I think I should bring my talk to an end, again, by thanking you for all that you have done to help us over these 2 decades, really, which is not a short time. I think some of the students can't be much older than that. And I hope that you will be with us for many more decades, especially when Burma is peaceful and prosperous, because we look forward to the time when we can contribute towards better relations, better situation in your country and in the rest of the world. Thank you.
Donc maintenant, nous allons entamer une interaction entre Aung San Suu Kyi et les membres de la communauté universitaire qui le souhaitent par un jeu de questions et de réponses. J'ai demandé au professeur Mathieu de Nanteuil d'assurer cette interaction. Alors, le professeur Mathieu de Nanteuil est professeur notamment en sciences politiques. Il est l'un des promoteurs d'une chaire qui verra bientôt le jour au sein de notre université et qui sera intitulée « Démocratie, culture » au pluriel et engagement. In English, Democracy, Cultures and Commitment. Et donc je vais lui céder directement la parole pour qu'il assure la bonne organisation de ce débat. Merci.
Une chaire évidemment en hommage à notre remarquable invité de ce jour. Inutile de vous dire que proposer un résumé comme cela m'avait été demandé par le recteur est une tâche strictement impossible. Je crois qu'on a simplement quelques points, si vous voulez, qui me semblent essentiels. À l'heure où la globalisation paraît menaçante pour beaucoup, quel message d'espoir pour une globalisation humaine qui surmonte non pas seulement nos différences, mais nos défauts, nos faiblesses. À l'heure où beaucoup raisonnent pour savoir si ce qu'ils font va être récompensé ou pas, la gratuité, la compassion ont été ici présentées comme la marque même de l'activité politique. À l'heure où beaucoup ne croient plus dans la politique, nous avons ici une leçon magistrale sur ce qui constitue l'essence de la politique, en retenant peut-être que la politique n'est pas une activité humaine à part, qu'elle est peut-être la partie la plus noble, la plus exigeante, la plus difficile aussi, et c'est pourquoi elle doit s'ouvrir aux dimensions les plus fondamentales, à commencer par celle que Aung San Suu Kyi nous a présentée. Bien sûr, ce qui a été dit également pour ce qui est du soutien que cette université a apporté dans toutes ses composantes, étudiantes, professorales et tant d'autres, a été, je crois, souligné en toute sa force, à la fois pour souligner la force des liens au nom des valeurs partagées qui transcendent les différences, les races, les religions, mais aussi parce qu'il y a là un geste fondamental qui permet à chacun de contribuer à un monde plus juste, non pas simplement là-bas, mais aussi ici. Et je crois que cette leçon magistrale va nous marquer pour longtemps. Comme le veut le protocole, il a été prévu d'ouvrir cette session de clore cette session par une séance de questions-réponses. Voilà, donc si vous voulez être très aimable, vous levez la main pour qu'on puisse vous voir. Il y a des hôtesses qui vont circuler. Oui, une première question.
Dear Aung San Suu Kyi, of course, as European Democrats, we want to continue help you win this struggle, non-violent struggle for free Burma. But as European Democrats, we also face a difficult situation here at home in Europe. As you know, anti-democratic parties are winning elections. The xenophobic feeling is on the rise. And so my question today is, what can you advise to European Democrats so that they also can strengthen their democracy and human rights at home? Thank you.
First, I want to thank the professor for his French translation, which sounds much better than the English original. And what should we do about this? The xenophobia, of course, is, I think, rooted in fear. Through the last few decades, I've come to the conclusion that all fear, all hatred is rooted in fear. So you will have to remove those roots of fear if you have to remove hatred, and if you have to remove xenophobia, what is it that people are frightened of? What is making them so afraid of those who are different from themselves? I think you have to look at this in a very fair way. You cannot blame people for being afraid. You have to ask the question, why? Why are they afraid? And you have to address the reasons for this fear. And Western democrats are in a better position to do it than, say, we are in Burma, because you have many opportunities, you have many means at your disposal, and you have thinking institutions like Louvain. And it is in places like this that you must study why people are so full of fear in an age when we have so many ways in which to right the wrongs that are going on. So please think of ways of removing fear, and that will give you the answer to removing the hatred that is what leads to xenophobia.
Thank you so much for everything that you've done and continue to do. I have the good fortune of working for a private civil society partnership focused on children. So I'm very interested to know the manifestation that should apply in terms of providing security and freedom for children. So I'm very interested to hear what your views are on what we should be doing to deliver those things specifically for the youngest and most vulnerable.
The moment you mention children, I immediately think of the fact that the great majority of the children in Burma in the rural areas are now stunted. This is because of malnutrition. So what can you do for children? One of the first things you can do is to make sure that they're properly nourished. Whenever I go to the countryside in Burma, I'm amazed at how small some of our children are. When I was growing up, our generation were all bigger than our parents' generation. We were all taller because we were better nourished, and these were the days when Burma was doing well. Now I notice that children in Burma, about 9 or 10, look as though they were about 5 or 6. And doctors have agreed with me that they are stunted. And so if you ask me what you can do for our children, first of all, you must help us to be able to nourish them properly. This is basic. But they need two kinds of nourishment, not just physical, but mental. Health and education. These are the fundamental needs of our children. Health and education, and the opportunity to develop their minds so that they will be able to cope with the challenges that the future will throw at them.
Oui.
Yes. I would like to thank you very, very much. You are so inspiring, and as everyone here, we feel full of admiration. My question is this one: how can you combine the need for justice and the need for reconciliation in your country? Because I guess that some people could associate reconciliation to impunity, and you have to appease them to get them along to move forward.
Well, isn't justice tempered by mercy the best kind of justice? I think that is what we have to aim at. Justice has to be tempered by mercy, because I don't think there is anyone among us who is not in need of mercy of some kind or the other. Well, perhaps there are a few saints here, but I wouldn't know. If there are any saints here, please put your hands up and then I will recognize you. But it is very difficult for ordinary human beings to be saintly, and all of us have our weaknesses, and all of us have made the wrong decisions at times. And to put yourself in a position where you don't forgive is tantamount to saying that you yourself needs no forgiveness. Well, perhaps there are some of you who does not need forgiveness of any kind, but I think the great majority of us do. And there is nothing wrong with justice tempered by mercy. You have to recognize what justice demands. But at the same time, you have to recognize that the demands of justice sometimes should not be met 100% for the greater good of society, for the future. We should not be shackled by the past. And the demand for absolute justice sometimes simply means the demand for vengeance. And that is not acceptable. Justice is not about vengeance. It is about creating a harmonious society. And if we are going to demand vengeance, we are not going to be able to achieve that kind of harmony. So I would simply say justice, to begin with. Everybody must be deemed innocent until proven guilty. And even those who are proven guilty, they must be shown mercy, not just justice, and they must be given the chance to redeem themselves.
Merci. Alors, une question ici, oui.
Je ne sais pas si je peux poser la question en français ou il y a une traduction qui est faite.
Ça va, français.
En fait, je voulais savoir, en tant que bouddhiste, vous avez dit que la compassion et la charité sont importants et de plus votre karma vous pousse justement à agir pour le reste de l'humanité, pour qu'on vive en paix, dans l'amour, etc. Alors, moi, je voulais savoir, qu'est-ce que vous faites concrètement pour les Rohingyas, cette minorité qui est persécutée, massacrée depuis des décennies en Birmanie, et tout ça sans impunité, quoi, sachant que vous visez la présidentielle 2015. Merci.
I'm glad you asked that question, because I think we have to look at it from both sides. Those who are Muslims should look at the situation of the Buddhists with compassion and charity. And Buddhists should look at the Muslims with compassion and charity. Compassion and charity, you should think in terms of what you can give to others rather than what you can demand of them. If both sides would think in such terms, if the Buddhists would think in terms of giving charity and compassion to the Muslims, and the Muslims in terms of giving charity and compassion to the Buddhists, rather than in condemning each other for whatever each other may have committed, because quite often violence is committed from different parts of society. If we would think in terms of giving rather than in terms of receiving, I think we could build up the kind of harmonious situation where we can get rid of these problems. Many Muslims have lived in Burma for many, many generations, and they have been integrated very peacefully into our society. I think we should learn from them how this harmonious integration was achieved. And so let's think in terms of giving and taking on both sides, rather than of any one particular side demanding from the other side.
Thank you very much. Oui, ici. Oui, madame.
Thank you. In fact, it's not a question, it's only one word. It's Jesu Dimbade in your language. And a small present for you. I know it's not the place, but I want to give it to you.
You can give it afterwards.
You.
Can you tell us what it meant?
Jesu Dimbade means thank you. Merci.
Ah, wonderful. Thank you very much. Je crois qu'il y avait une question ici, là, s'il vous plaît. Oui.
The road ahead is going to be indeed very long, and we wish you all the courage and the obstination that you have had in the past. My question is going to be very brutal. Security, indeed. Freedom, certainly. And after all, both are linked. You cannot be free if you're insecure. I would have possibly add a third term that you are yourself emphasizing so many times, which is solidarity. It's compassion in a certain sense. But solidarity, freedom, and security depends very much on the kind of development model that Burma is going to follow. Did yourself or some of your friends or your party give already some thought about how are you going, I would say, to manage the extremely difficult obstacles to develop an authentic development model for the people of Burma? Are you going to follow the Bhutan model or the Thai model or the Vietnamese model?
No, we're not going to follow their models. We'll create our own model. We have been thinking about it for the last 30 years or so. And I won't say we have all the answers. We have some of the answers. We certainly know what we don't want. And we know some of the things we want. We don't have all the answers. If we had all the answers, we would have achieved democracy 30 years ago. But we will get there.
I just would add that this question was made by a brilliant professor of economics here who has a strong involvement in Africa.
Yes, but
and you have to know that this university have a strong involvement in developing countries in Africa, in Latin America, for many years. So that's why such question was raised.
Let me just say that there's one thing we're quite sure about. We want our development to be as inclusive as possible. That we can say. But no, we're not going to follow a particular model. We'll create our own.
It's a question about security and freedom that you explained. I've heard that some European police corps will give some advice and trainings to the Burmese police. But in fact, it should be the other way around. You should give some advice to the European and Belgian police corps. For the moment, in Brussels, there is a demonstration of people, refugees from Afghanistan, and our federal police is using their batons and their gas to break their movement. The European police corps are leading a war against migrants on the frontiers of Europe to avoid them to enter in Europe, and they're locking them up in camps which are in fact prisons. And it's a special program from the European Union, Frontex, against human rights and our common shared human values. So it's a question to your request. Please give some advice to the European Police Corps in the way to handle human rights in Europe. Thank you.
I think rather than giving them advice, I'll certainly ask them some questions, which I think are necessary, because I'm here to learn, and by asking questions, I'll learn. But at the same time, I would like to say that what we have to do is to help countries in such a way that their peoples will not be forced to run away. Nobody wants to go away from their native land, not unless there are overwhelming reasons for doing so. And what we have to concentrate on is not keeping refugees out, but creating a situation where there will be no need for refugees. At one time, Burma was such a country. No Burmese would think of going across the border to any other country because we were doing perfectly well in our own country, thank you. But now we have many Burmese going out as refugees. This came about through misgovernment in our own country. So let us look at it, let us look at the problem on both sides. First, the fundamental one is to make sure that people are not forced to leave their own country out of need, out of fear, or out of want. So this is what we have to try to achieve. And I will certainly ask the police what they think about what you have said today, and that I would like the police everywhere, all over the world, to be respected and to be seen by the people of all races and religions, as a dependable force who are there to preserve rule of law and not to in any way bully people. So I will ask them that question.
Il nous reste peu de temps, encore 2 questions. Oui, allez-y.
How can we keep hope when we see the world and all suffering beings? Because it's very difficult to never give up. And where do you find your strength?
Well, why I don't give up is very simple. I'm very stubborn, I'm very obstinate, and I don't quite know what giving up means, so I don't give up. But I think basically one does not give up if one really believes in what one is doing. And also I've been very fortunate in good comrades. And if you have good comrades, you don't abandon them. It's not something you could dream of doing, at least not something I could dream of doing. When I was in prison, I used to think to myself, if there were just one other person in this country remaining committed to democracy, I will go on. But if I'm alone, I will not go on, not because I would be afraid of being alone, because then I would be doing it just for myself. If I had just one other person for whom I would be trying to achieve democracy, it would be worth it. So I think you have to believe that what you are doing will be of benefit to at least one other person, if not more. And the more people you think would benefit from your efforts, the more determined you become to stay on and fight on.
Thank you. Alors, thank you very much. There is a last question coming from a Burmese student in Louvain.
First of all, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being such an example for all of us. I'm afraid I'm going to ask pretty much the same thing. I was thinking of the time when you were secluded in your own home and you were so courageous. I wanted to know, how did you act not to succumb to fear and to want that you mentioned before? Thank you.
Well, to begin with, I was not in want of any kind. I was kept well. I've always admitted this, that although they kept me under house arrest, the authorities treated me well, and I was never in want. As to courage, I don't know. People say that I have been very courageous, but I've never felt that particularly. I've always felt that I was doing what I had to do, and that whatever I did out of my own free choice, not because anybody had forced me to do it. And I think that helped a great deal. And as I said earlier, the fact that I believed that what I was doing would benefit others was a great help. Fear is something all of us have to face. I don't think there's anything wrong with fear. The only thing is that you must not let it guide your actions. You have to face it and overcome it. Because if you let fear guide your actions, then you will end up doing a lot of wrong things. But if you face your fears and decided that, yes, this is fear, but you should not give in to it, it's a matter of determination. Well, perhaps I was born stubborn.
Quel témoignage, je crois que vous allez laisser une trace absolument indélébile dans le cœur et dans la raison de cette université. Merci infiniment du plus profond de chacun de nos âmes, par tous ceux qui participent aujourd'hui à cette cérémonie, et je crois par l'université dans ce qu'elle a de plus beau et de plus profond. Alors, le temps des adieux approche. Il me revient d'entamer une cérémonie, si vous voulez, de remise de cadeaux qui vont essayer de vous dire à quel point ce que vous avez pu dire aujourd'hui, ce que vous avez pu faire pendant des années, a été pour nous tous un témoignage qui allait au-delà de notre engagement universitaire et qui nous a touchés au plus profond. J'ai la charge difficile, vous comprendrez, de vous remettre plusieurs documents. D'abord un livre qui a été réalisé par bon nombre d'artistes, d'étudiants, de professeurs, de témoins, de simples citoyens, belges ou étrangers, qui sont venus vous dire leur soutien en 2006, lors d'une journée mémorable, en soutien à vous-même et à d'autres de vos proches. Anko, que vous connaissez peut-être, était là pour exprimer sa solidarité et, d'une certaine manière, votre présence. C'est un livre qui mêle des poèmes, des textes, et différents témoignages. Vous trouverez ici également un carnet qui reprend le projet que le recteur a accueilli avec beaucoup d'enthousiasme, et nous le remercions pour cela, de créer une chaire en votre nom et pour souligner l'importance de votre action sur le thème démocratie, culture, au pluriel et engagement. Le pluriel est important. Je crois que ce que vous avez dit aujourd'hui ne peut que nous pousser à comprendre à quel point shared values beyond drawbacks and difference are absolutely fundamental. Vous trouverez également le témoignage de tous ceux qui, ici, dans cette université, inspirés par ce qui s'est passé lors du doctorat honoris causa en 1998, ont décidé de joindre leur intelligence à l'action et se sont engagés pour créer Action Birmanie et toutes les actions qui ont soutenu votre parti et votre action sur place. Vous trouverez également un portrait intellectuel qui retrace à quel point ce que vous nous dites, ce que vous avez fait n'est pas le fruit du hasard, mais le fruit d'une longue maturation intellectuelle qui, je crois, inspire notre université. Alors permettez-moi peut-être en français, je m'en excuse, mais de vous lire ce que vous écriviez vous-même dans un livre que nous devrions conseiller à chaque étudiant de cette université qui s'appelle « Freedom from Fear ». Dans ce livre, vous écriviez ceci. Dans sa quête de la démocratie, le peuple de Birmanie, pour avancer, ne s'appuie pas seulement sur des théories et des expériences politiques venues de l'extérieur du pays, mais il fait également appel aux valeurs spirituelles et intellectuelles qui ont façonné son histoire. Cette quête est la lutte de tout un peuple pour vivre à part entière, comme ailleurs dans le monde, une existence pleinement signifiante d'êtres humains libres et égaux. Une vie qui s'inscrit dans l'inlassable effort de l'homme pour montrer que son esprit peut transcender l'imperfection de sa nature. Aung San Suu Kyi, merci.
Voilà, nous invitons Aung San Suu Kyi à signer le livre d'or de notre université. Merci.
I have to sign my name? Where should I sign it here?
Yes.
Here?
Perfect. Thank you.